G'day everyone, welcome to the Eternal Gathering podcast. It's the Gatherer here, and it's been a while since we've had a podcast, but in that time there's been a lot happening in the world of Pioneer, and today what we're going to talk about is the recent Players Tours that happened, with Players Tour Nagoya and Players Tour Pheonix, and talk about the top 8 in particular, what decks are performing, what's happening in the meta, and have a bit of a discussion about that. And then I also want to touch a bit about, the Theros Beyond Death and Secret Lairs and the reprints happening, and the collector's boosters of Theros Beyond Death, and what's happening in the market recently with these new products being introduced. So those are the two topics that I kind of want to get through today on the agenda. As always, guys, like, subscribe, and most probably share this content if you can, please. It will help out the channel quite a lot. And yeah, so let's get started here. And we're going to start with the Players Tour Nagoya, where we got our top 8. With Blue White Spirits coming in first. Shram Auras second, then 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th was Blue Black Inverter, and also a Mono Black Vampires in there. Sorry, 4th to 7th was Blue Black Inverter, and 8th Mono Black Vampires. So as you can see, a lot of Blue Black Inverter in a top 8. Didn't win the tournament, but was definitely a standout deck in this Players Tour. And before we go into the deck specifically, let's go to Players Tour Pheonix and have a look at the top 8 there. So in top 8, we got first place, Demi Inverter. Second place, Lotus Breach. Third place, Mono Red Aggro. 4th, Sultai Delirium. 5th, Azura's Control. 6th, Lotus Breach. 7th, Bant Spirits. And 8th was another Demi Inverter. So not as dominant the Demi Inverters in this player tour in Pheonix, but still making it 2 in the top 8 and winning the tournament itself. So let's start with the Players Tour Pheonix and the Demi Inverter deck itself, the winner. And this deck, if you are not familiar with it, basically it's a combo deck. It plays only 8 creatures, 4 of Thassa's Oracle and 4 Inverter of Truth. So the point of this deck is to basically play those 2 cards, preferably on the same turn, to win the game on the spot. Inverter of Truth, exiling your library and then placing all the cards in your graveyard into your library. And then Thassa's Oracle, having very long text. Basically, you look at the top X cards, where X is your devotion to blue, which on most occasions will be 2, since Thassa's Oracle is 2 blue. And then you get to put one of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library. And if X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game on the spot. And that enters the battlefield ability. Inverter of Truth is also an enters the battlefield ability. Inverter of Truth is also a 6/6 flyer for 4, 2 and 2 black. So you could go down the route of beating your opponent to death with a 6/6 flyer if things aren't going the way that you are hoping to go. The deck then plays also 3 Jace Wielder of Mysteries, another win condition. Of course, if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you will win the game instead, being its static ability. Going well again with the Inverter of Truth. And then a bunch of spells to interact with your opponents. You got Fatal Push, Opt, Thought Seize, Censor, Drown in the Lock, Thought Erasure, Hero's Downfall, and Dig Through Time, being a really important card, being able to exile cards from your graveyard to make it smaller, so that when you play your Inverter of Truth, you've only got maybe 1, 2 cards in your graveyard to turn into your library. Land base seems okay. You got some Choke Estuaries, Drowned Catacombs, Fable Passage as well to fill up the graveyard. Feather Pools, another way to fill up the graveyard with cycling ability if you don't need land, as well as some islands, swamps, and watery graves. Then you've also got some flex spots, people playing Urbog, Tomb of Yawgmoth, or Castle Lothwain and Castle of Vantress. Sideboard, playing Dampening Sphere, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, another way just to kind of go for the long game. Legion's End, Negate, Mystical Dispute, more Heroes Downfall, Languishes. So some more removals, some more interactions in the sideboard. So this deck, obviously, being a combo deck, is quite strong in its current meta. Enters battlefield abilities allow it to win on the spot. There's no waiting until your next upkeep, which is the benefit of this deck. That's why you can play them both on the same turn once you know that your opponent's tapped out, or if your thought sees them and you know what kind of cards that are in their hand. It is a controlling deck, deck that you play for the first probably 6 turns, mostly interaction against your opponent, either taking cards away from their hand or on the battlefield, as well as looking for your pieces, your Inverter of Truth and Thassa's Oracle. This deck performed very well in the Players Tour and has gained a lot of popularity in recent times. And you can tell by the top cards in the actual Players Tour. You've got in Nagoya, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, Dig Through Time, Opt, Thassa's Oracle, Inverter of Truth, being in the top 6 most played cards in the tournament, as well as Jace, World of Mysteries being number 10, and Mystical Dispute being number 9. 7 and 8 were Teferi, Time Raveler, and Scrap Heap Scrounger. In Players Tour Phoenix, you got pretty much the same. You got Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, Dig Through Time, Thassa's Oracle, Inverter of Truth, Opt, Jace, World of Mysteries, Mystical Dispute, all being cards within that deck, being the top 8 most played cards, followed by Satire, Wayfinder, and an Uru, Titan of Nature's Wrath, which is another card that has seen quite a bit of play and been successful in Pioneer from the latest set, Theros Beyond Death. So back on to the Players Tour Phoenix. We've got the Lotus Breach deck, which came in at second. Another deck that has some different win conditions depending on which way you want to go. There is a version that plays Thassa's Oracle, being able to exile the cards from your library. But the one that came second is playing more of the Expansion Explosion strategy, playing a bunch of spells, more like Storm, really, and untapping and tapping their mana over and over again with creatures like Vizier of Tumbling Sands, as well as Hidden Strings, being a sorcery to be able to untap target permanent, and playing them from their graveyard, Underworld Breach, and using the Lotus Field land, which allows it to tap for 3 mana of any one color, and untapping that land over and over again. Very interesting deck. Something that can gain a lot of mana really quickly, therefore being able to play a lot of spells and then trying to play Expansion Explosion as well for a really, really huge number. So that is the deck that came in second. Third was Mono Red Aggro. Mono Red Aggro is still quite strong in format. Still seeing a lot of play. You got your stock list. It's kind of gone down from the chunky red that was happening probably a few weeks ago. You got your more commonly seen deck with low to the ground creatures. You got Monastery Swiftspear, Soulscar Mage, Zergo Bellstriker, Abbot of Carroll Keep, Rimrock Knight, Bonecrusher Giant, seeing a lot of play still. Goblin Rabblemaster, also starting to see a lot of play and going up in price as well. Keep an eye on that. Torbrand, Thane of Redfell, also being played. Chandra Torture Defiance as your one of Planeswalker, and then you got your Wild Slash, Lightning Strike, and Shocks in the spells. So it's mostly a aggro creature based deck, which does go really quickly in taking the opponent's life total down, and difficult to kind of control and manage for the opponent. Sultai Delirium came in at 4th. This is a deck that plays Uru, Titan of Nature's Wrath, and does a really good job of it. It's being seeing more and more play in Pioneer, also being seeing some play in Modern, in the Titan Shift and Amulet Titan decks. So this deck is basically trying to play a deck where you're playing a bit more longer game. You're playing very similar to Jund in Pioneer. You're playing really good spells. Probably the best spells that you can possibly find in the format. You got a lot of mana producing as well, because you're going to go to late game. So you want to be able to play Emrakul, the Promised End, or a really big Walking Ballista to win the game. You've got your 4 of Uru, Titan of Nature's Wrath, and then Nissa, Who Shakes the World, Liliana, Last Hope, Fatal Push, Thoughtseize as well, Traverse the Urban to find your pieces, find your threats, and then some removal in Abrupt Decay, Murderous Rider as well. So it can go the long game. Jason Prince Prodigy is also being played in this deck. A deck that, is pretty fair kind of deck. No real combos, just really good cards at the command mana costs and those slots for Pioneer. Then you got your Azura's Control. Pretty stock kind of control deck. A lot of interaction with the spells. Planeswalkers, basically playing to Fairy, Hero of Dominaria, and Time Reveler. Elspeth's Son's Nemesis has been seeing some play. Very good against the aggro decks, being able to gain life or place some blockers on the battlefield, and then playing it from your graveyard as well. Narset, Parter, and Veils as a one-of as well. And then basically trying to win the game with your Planeswalkers in the late game. We've got Bant Spirits. So Bant Spirits, or even Azura Spirits, have been very strong. As you've seen in Player 2 at Nagoya, there was a Blue-White Spirits that won the tournament. Bant Spirits literally playing Collector Company as the only green card in the main board. In the sideboard, you got Permeating Mass, which is a spirit, a 1/3 for 1 green, and whenever it deals combination to a creature, that creature becomes a copy of Permeating Mass. So being able to basically nullify opponents' creatures, such as your creatures that are really strong. You can put this as a blocker in front of it, and making it only a 1/3, like Uru, Titans, and other stronger cards in the format that might be problematic. Collector Company, obviously being able to play all of your creatures are 3 or less mana. You got your Mausoleum Wanderer, Spectral Sailor at the 1-drop, Rattle Chains, Soft Spirit, Supreme Phantom at the 2-drop, and the 3-drop we got Noble Geist Herald, Spell Quellers, and then a Empyrean Eagle, which is also a bird spirit, being able to pump your team. So it is quite an aggressive deck with some control elements to it, akin to the modern version of the Spirits deck. And then we go to Players Tour Nagoya, the Blue-White Spirits deck, basically the same as the Bat one. Actually, this one is a Bat one. I don't know why they call it Blue-White Spirits, but it does have Collector Company and Permeating Mass. It's basically this exact same deck that we were just discussing before, except they do play some Brazen Borrowers as well, cutting down on the Spectral Sailors. So that is basically the same deck. Shram Auras, interesting deck. Obviously, playing the namesake Shram Senior Edificer. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, you get to draw a card. And then you've got your enchantment creatures, Aslade of Life's Bounty, Hateful Eidolon, Femia the Cacophony, which then obviously triggers a Shram, as well as playing Karametra's Blessing, which is a great way to give your creatures that are enchanted or enchantment creatures hexproof and indestructible to end a turn. So I guess something similar to a Blossom in Defense would be played in a green version if you were to play green. So Karametra's Blessing is kind of like the white version of that. Then your enchantments, you've got Cartouche of Solidarity, giving you some more blockers, as well as pumping up the creature that it enchants. Give me a +1/+1 and first strike. Through Armor, Gift Spoon, Sentinel's Eyes, and All That Glitters. Basically kind of making it akin to a Boggles version in Modern that you would see. So that deck, very interesting kind of deck. I like to see a bit more of that in the format. That'll be really interesting to play against and to have in the format. Then you got your blue-black inverters, which we've already talked about, and then mono-black vampires, another aggressive deck, playing low to the ground again, but having the ability to go a bit longer in the game. You have 4 Knights of the Ebon Legion, 4 Dust Legion Zealots, 4 Gifted Aetherborns, 3 Modus Riders, 2 Kalidas, Traitor of Forget, and 4 Champion of Dusk. But you have your Sorin Imperious Bloodlord being able to put any vampire creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So you'll be able to play those higher costed mana vampires from your hand onto the battlefield. Then you got your stock Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Grasp of Darkness as well, as your spells, and then the sideboard having some more interactive spells, as well as a Rankle Master's Pranks, another Kalitas, Trader of Get as well to bring in, and Liliana's The Last Hope. If you're versing probably more like the mono red or white weenie decks. So that is the decks that saw play in the Players Tour for Pioneer. Very interesting top 8. Blue-Black Inverter. A lot of people have been talking about that deck in recent times and whether or not it is too strong for the format. I like combo decks. I like having combo decks. And yes, it's quite dominant, but I feel like it was very heavily played at the Players Tour. So it's interesting to see how the meta adapts and shifts to that. There was a ban and restricted announcement last week, and nothing was changed. I think Wizards also have the same idea. They want to kind of see how this deck performs with the format being able to adjust to it, and whether or not something needs to get banned from that, time will tell. We'll have to see. Maybe Dig Through Time might be a card that's quite strong in that deck. Be able to find your pieces, and also exiling the cards in the graveyard to whittle down your graveyard. So when Inverter does hit the battlefield, it makes a small library for you to be able to then win with Thassa's Oracle. So that might be a card that I think is potential to see some bannings in the future, but I think that the meta can kind of adapt to it. I think the control decks are starting to kind of rise, and then you've also got aggro decks that can go against this. If you're really, really aggressive, really early on, you can kind of get past the corner and win the game before turn 6. That's a really good strategy against these decks as well. So really interesting to see what Players Tour brought. I think the Pheonix one shows more diversity and shows that you can still play a lot of different decks and do well. I like the Sultai Delirium deck. I'm really interested to see how that progresses. I feel like it's it's going to be like the Jund of Pioneer Sultai. It's the most expensive deck, $917 that was played at the Players Tour that made the top 8. It does play relatively good spells at the mana cost that they have. So you're basically playing the best cards that you can for that slot. So that's an interesting deck. Very fair deck as well. And something that might see a bit more play. Mono red aggro, again, still very strong in the format. Lotus Breach is interesting to see how that goes. That's also kind of a combo-y deck itself. So seeing how that also performs and how the meta adapts to that deck being brought into the format. Spirits looks really strong. Pretty much close as you can get to the modern deck. It's missing some key pieces. However, for Pioneer, it is really a really strong deck, and I think is going to be one of the top decks in the meta for some time. So that is the top 8 decks within the Players Tour Nagoya. Just gonna and Pheonix, sorry. Just gonna see what the top cards of the meta are and what the top decks are of the meta according to MTG Goldfish. Just as we go through and look at this. So we've got in Pioneer the top deck being Demi Inverter being 18% of the meta. Then Bant Spirits at 10%, and then Sultai Delirium 8%, Lotus Breach also 8%. And then we start going into Mono Black, Mono White Heliod, which is another interesting deck that didn't see the success as other decks. That's still relatively strong deck. I would think give some more time, it can find the pieces that will really make it go that next step. Mono Red Aggro and Azura's Control round out the top 8 decks in the meta. Your top cards in the meta. So we've got in the most cards played overall. Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, Mystical Dispute, Dig Through Time, Thassa's Oracle, Opt, Inverter of Truth, Jace Wood of Mysteries, Satire Wayfinder, and Uru, Tide of Nature's Wrath. So there you can kind of see what the most played decks are. Your Demi Inverted decks and your Sultai Delirium decks. Top creatures, Thassa's Oracle, Inverter of Truth, Satire Wayfinder, Uru, Tide of Nature's Wrath, Spellcaller, Self Spirit, Spectral Sailor, Empyrean Eagle, Muzzling Wanderer, and Nebelgast Herald, showing you again the spirits is quite popular. And then your top spells, you got Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, Mystical Dispute, Dig Through Time, Opt, Jace Wood of Mysteries, Collector Company, Dampening Sphere, Rest in Peace, and Wild Slash. Rest in Peace, Dampening Sphere being in the sideboards of a lot of decks now to kind of manage the Lotus Breach decks and also the Inverter decks. Lotus Breach with Dampening Sphere and Rest in Peace for your Inverter decks. So that is the meta breakdown of Pioneer. I feel like there's not going to be much of a shift over the next few weeks. Maybe Heliod might start to try and find some more ground in the meta, but I feel like the combo decks are quite strong, and then you got your more control-y aggressive decks as well being quite strong, like your Mono Red, Azura's Control, and the Bat Spirits. So that kind of rounds it out for our topic of the Players Tour and top 8s that were at Nagoya and Pheonix. Next on the agenda, I wanted to quickly just touch base on the prices of Theros Beyond Death, the cards that in that set, as well as Secret Lairs and how that's affecting the market. For people that don't know, Secret Lairs is a product that's being sold directly by Wizards of the Coast, usually in a 24-hour bracket, where they're giving a specific card or set of cards with alternate art, brand new art. Some are foil, some are non-foil, and yeah, basically between $20 to $40, depending on the type of cards within the product. It's good to get some reprints out. Very interesting way of getting reprints out, having a direct to customer kind of sale from Wizards of the Coast. But also it kind of diverts products to local game stores, and it kind of makes you think, what's the future gonna hold if these are a regular occurrence, and they're becoming a regular occurrence. We've had I would say more than 15 drops in the last 2 months, so you're getting a lot of reprints, a lot of products out there. Yeah, they say they're not going to reprint them anymore once it's print to order. They've obviously printed X amount of these Secret Lairs, and then if they go over what they've printed, they'll print some more. But having the direct to the customers from Wizards is a little bit of a new territory. It might make people a bit apprehensive and a bit scared at first. I feel like it is more of a collector's item, and the arts are really nice and really cool. But there's still going to be products out there that are going to put reprints in the masses. You got your mystery booster coming out in March, which is going to be bringing a lot of reprints in it, and I think those kind of products will remain. It's more just having these little extra things that you can kind of get. Bitter Blossom was really, really nice. Just things that will appeal to certain niche players with these Secret Lairs. So although it's taken away from the local game store, I think it's still another way of purchasing cards, and another way of getting your Magic fix. And it's not really affecting the market as a whole, because there's not a lot of products being produced. So therefore, you're still relatively impacting the market at a lower rate than you would if you were to make sell booster boxes of these, or packs of cards that have reprints within them directly from Wizards, which I don't think they'll be doing anytime soon. That might be something that might happen in the future, but the only thing that they've done that's close to that is obviously the versions where they had the Planeswalker packs, where they had the Planeswalkers with alternate arts and foil in a booster box that cost a heck of a lot of money and was very limited supply. So that's the closest they've gone. I don't think they're going to do anything like selling directly to customers products like booster boxes. That's more geared towards Amazon. What they're doing with Amazon now and selling it directly from Amazon. I think that's the way that they're going to be going. So it's just another way, I reckon, in being able to bring a product to customers. But Theros Beyond Death, the prices for singles have really, really, really dropped. We'll have a look at the expected value of Theros Beyond Death. And according to Dawn Glare, Your Theros Beyond Death is $74 expected value. If you look at Eldraine, it's $98, which is the set just prior to Theros Beyond Death. And more importantly, it's actually the cards within the actual set that have really, really kind of got me scratching my head. You've got the borderless planeswalkers and the gods in the showcase frame being really, really affected by the increased supply that has been brought in by the collector's boosters of Theros Beyond Death, and the hit rate that has changed in Theros Beyond Death. You are way more likely to get a showcase mythic god in the Theros Beyond Death boosters, collector boosters, sorry, as well as the borderless planeswalkers. So making them way more accessible as compared to the Throne of Eldraine, where the borderless planeswalkers were not found as frequently, and the showcase frames also not found as frequently. So if we have a look at the top expensive cards in Theros Beyond Death, Uru is still holding a lot of value, $40 there, and Heliod coming in second at $17.50. Then you start to see a bit of a drop after Thassa, Ashok, and Nyx Bloom being also $12, $13 cards. Then you go down to your other planeswalkers, Elspeth Sun's Nemesis and Calyx being $7 and $4. And then they're borderless versions of these cards as well. The borderless version for Calyx being $4, so basically the same as a normal version. And then we go to Elspeth. Elspeth is a normal version of the card is $7. A borderless version is actually a bit cheaper at $6.70. Very interesting for a card that's supposed to be very rare to find. And then we look at Ashiok, which has its borderless counterpart at $12. So basically the same price as the normal version. So really interesting to see that. I think that they've made a really big mistake with the collector's boosters and the way that you're able to get these cards much more frequently. I've been a fan of the Masterpiece series, but I feel like they could have done it much better. I think they need to go back to that. I think what they need to do is go back to the they don't have to go exactly do Masterpiece, but they did it well with the Throne of Eldraine. They did a good job where the borderless planeswalkers, they need to be at a very low rate. You need to be getting, probably a non-foil version, hitting at probably 1 in every 4 boxes, and a foil version 1 in every 8 boxes. And then in the collector's boosters, you need to be probably doing the same. 1 in every 4 boxes and non-foil, and 1 in every 8 boxes for the foil. And in the showcase frames, they only had 10 showcase frames in Theros Beyond Death. I think the showcase frames should be scrapped or given to the mythic slot, and making them also be part of the masterpiece kind of value or hit rate, being again 1 in every 4 boxes of a showcase mythic, and a foil version hitting at 1 in every 8 boxes, just to make them a bit more special. I feel like they've lost their the touch. They lost their specialty. They're not something that when you open, you're like, whoa, this is amazing, this is great to get. It's just something that's, oh, cool, I got an alternate version of this that other people have as well, and I can just buy for the same prices as the normal version. They just need to bring some more awe and wonder and excitement into opening those boxes again. So I think they've really dropped the ball on Theros. Maybe they were just trying it out, seeing what the reaction was. Don't know if that was such a great idea. I think they did a great job with Eldraine. But they just need to, go back to that. Maybe even make it a little bit, not too much, just a little bit harder to get those types of cards, the borderless cards. The collector boosters as well. The alternate, or what is it called, like the full frame, half frame cards, they're really cool as well. But I find it's not worth getting a collector's booster if that's all that you're getting, especially at the price that they are at. If you can get the price a bit cheaper, maybe I'll be more inclined to get it. Currently they're selling about $30 per booster, which is way too expensive. And at my LGSs, they're just still on the shelf. No one's really picking them up. Everyone picked them up at Throne of Eldraine, and I think that kind of brought with it some hype. And in Wizards of the Coast's eyes, maybe they thought, this is a really good product. Let's keep it going. Let's try and give a bit more to it, because maybe that people were feeling that they weren't getting what the value that they wanted in them, and then maybe that's what brought the borderless planeswalkers to be more common. But I think they're doing it the wrong way. They need to be making it have some more exclusive cards in there, or bringing the price down, and make it more accessible, and something that people actually want to spend an extra $10 on instead of an extra 20 or more dollars on. There's just no point in paying the extra money, especially when you can get the borderless planeswalkers and the showcase frames in a normal booster box. I think they should keep that. They should just make that less frequent in normal booster boxes, and the frequency in the collector boosters a bit higher, but not too high, which is what they've done here with Theros Beyond Death. So those are kind of my thoughts for the current climate of Magic. As always, guys, just let me know in the comments your thoughts on today's topics. And as we finish off the podcast today, everything on the stack has resolved, and good games, everyone.